AMD Ryzen 7 9800 by 3D crushes 7800 by 3D in Blender and by a solid 26 Uplift. AMD's Ryzen 7 9800 by 3D continues to dominate even non-X 3D counterparts in early benchmarks, now delivering a 10% plus performance uplift over Ryzen 7 9700X in Blender. AMD Ryzen 7 9800 by 3D scores 323.76 points in the Blender rendering test, making it faster than both its predecessor and non-X 3D counterpart. More benchmarks are coming in for the upcoming AMD Ryzen 7 9800 by 3D, and every time, the processor is looking better than ever. Looks like AMD Ryzen 7 9800 by 3D isn't just a gaming CPU but is going to be an all-around perfection. At the moment, we are mostly seeing its synthetic and CPU-oriented benchmarks, the latest of which is the Blender test. As spotted by at 9550 Pro HXL, the Ryzen 9800 by 3D scored an impressive 323.76 points in Blender rendering. The result was uploaded on the website, which allows us to see and compare with other CPUs too. Thankfully, this helps us rank the 9800 by 3D among the latest releases by both AMD and Intel. It should be kept in mind that the more a CPU gets tested in Blender, that is, the higher the number of benchmarks appear on the website, the more accurate the data will be. Nonetheless, we can see that the Ryzen 9800 by 3D is roughly 26% faster than the 7800 by 3D, which scored 256.37 media score. We have seen the 9800 by 3D outperform the 7800 by 3D a few times before as well. The processor also outperformed Core i5-14600K by around 7% margin and is on par with the Core Ultra 5245K. The more interesting comparison is between the 9800 by 3D and Ryzen 9700X, as the former has once again come out to be faster than the latter. This time the performance gap is 10.5%. Which makes the 9800 by 3D a solid choice for productivity and content creation. This uplift comes as a result of several factors, but the extra L3 cache doesn't seem to be the only one. As AMD Ryzen 9700X ships with 5.5 GHz compared to 5.2 GHz on the Ryzen 9800 by 3D. Even though the latter can be overclocked up to 5.6 GHz as per the recent leaks, the Ryzen 9700X can also hit higher clock speeds. Unfortunately, the Blender results page doesn't list the clock speeds and the configuration used, which is why the default position is that the 9800 by 3D brings some crucial changes to the die, which helps it reach such a high score. Now compare this to the scores by Ryzen 7 7700X and Ryzen 7800 by 3D. The former is slightly faster and therefore, the 9800 by 3D is most likely benefiting from both extra L3 cache and higher clock speeds. The Ryzen 7 9800 by 3D is expected to release on 7th November for a price between $450–$500.